Hi there, I'm Robin. I'm going to be putting up some biblical Hebrew lessons largely on behalf of the little congregation to which I belong. I am not an expert. I do not know as much as the people that I'm still learning from. But of all the people that come regularly, I probably know slightly more. And I'm not afraid to get up in front of a group of people, so I volunteered to try and teach us all what I knew. And people have asked me about makeup lessons because they couldn't be there one week. Some can only very rarely do the lessons. And they said, can you email to me what you've talked about? And at first I did, but that became very, very bulky. And it's hard when you can't point to something when you're trying to say, now look at the third word on the fourth line, that kind of thing. So I decided I wasn't going to even try to do that anymore. And I'm going to put some of these on YouTube. And like I said, this is mainly for the benefit of those in our congregation. If it blesses somebody else, great. I'm happy for that. And I want to make the disclaimer, like I said, I am still a student. And you who are still my teachers and my mentors, you know who you are, and you know how many questions I still ask, and you know how much I don't understand. And I'm not pretending that I am your equal, your peer, your competitor. I'm nothing like that. I am just trying to help my little congregation in whatever way that I can. And in our little group, we have some who can just about read the Tanakh in Hebrew, and we have some who are clueless about what the different letters are. So we're working with all kinds of levels, and we have all kinds of interests. Some people are saying, I want to know all the gematria. I want to know the different levels of meaning. I want to get into the grammar. I need to know the alphabet. So we're going to move forward on all of those things a little bit at a time. We are going to go through the alphabet, but I'm going to mention other things at the same time. And it's going to be a smattering of a bunch of little things as we try to move all the fronts forward so everybody gets fed a little bit on something that interests them. As I said, we're going through the alphabet. We did the first two letters at once. We did Aleph and Bet. And Aleph in the Paleo Hebrew was originally an ox head, and it came to mean strength and authority. That's the meaning behind the letter Aleph. And as that concept works into words that have an Aleph, you'll see how that works. Bet is the second letter, and it stands for a house or a tent, or it can mean what's inside. And something that'll introduce here, not that people need to memorize a lot of these terms, but just so you know, this letter comes in two forms. You'll see it like this, and you'll also see it with a dot in the middle. And that dot is called a dagesh. In some letters, it's a grammatical rule, and it doesn't mean a whole lot as far as being able to sound out words. In the bet, it means a lot. Without it, it's the soft sound, v. And with it, it's the hard sound, b. So you'll pronounce it differently depending on whether that dot is there. The Aleph doesn't make a sound. It's kind of a guttural stop, like if you, I live in Utah, and my son says that we're just one glottal stop short of being Cockney sometimes. We say mittens, not mittens. And so that ittens, that's the glottal stop. That's what Aleph can kind of do sometimes. If you have two ah sounds in a row, ga'al, you'll have that little catch. That will be an Aleph sound. And also, all the letters are consonants. Hebrew letters are all consonants. But things like Aleph and Ain, they make vowel sounds. So if you add a vowel marking to it, and vowel markings are a world of their own, we're not going to get into that too much today. but you could make that an ah, an e, an a. You could do all different kinds of put marks around it, and it will make the vowel sound. So anyway, the Aleph makes whatever sound the vowel is that you give it, or it's just like a glottal stop. This is a v and this is a b. Now, Hebrew letters are also numbers. The Aleph, being the first letter in the alphabet, is a number 1. And the Bet is a number 2. And the numbers have symbolic meanings. Usually 1 refers to God. There's one God, and he's united with himself, and he's unique. He will say all through the Tanakh, there is no God beside me, behind me, before me, next to me, like me, comparable to me. There aren't any others. This is it. One God. And the number 2 indicates usually separation, but it can also mean unity. Think of Adam and Eve. Eve was taken out of man, so there are 2 of them. But then they're brought back together to be one. So it's separation and division. You think about the world being created and the, excuse me, the waters and the dry land being separated into 2 things, but it's one earth. So it's separation and unity at the same time. Also, you need 2 witnesses of any truth for it to be true. So 2 is witnesses, 2 is separation, 2 can be 2 things brought together in one. Now, something else that the bait can do besides being meaning a house, just being a letter, it's a prefix. And it's just this letter. And I'm going to put a hyphen after it. You won't see the hyphen in the words, but I'm just putting it there to show that it would be at the beginning of the word. And if you didn't know, that hyphen there is an indication that you're reading from right to left. Hebrew is not backwards. Hebrew is there long before English was. We are backward. This is the correct way to write. So you start with what's right, and then you end up going over here. So the b, this would just be a b sound at the beginning of a word, means in whatever it is. It's not a separate word like in English where you have in as a separate word that's a preposition. It's a prefix in Hebrew, but it still means in. So that's another way that ba can mean in or inside. So moving on to the first word. I'm not sure there's room for you to see, so I'm going to erase. First word is just going to be those 2 letters together. It's one of the first words you're going to learn in any Hebrew course. And I'm putting the vowel mark in there. That's going to make an ah sound. Don't worry about memorizing the vowel markings. As we go through, we'll go over them a lot. You may pick them up and memorize them. If you don't, we will come back and really work on them sometime down the road. So since that's a vowel marking, and actually that should be a little longer. Okay, so that's ah. So the Aleph is going to make an ah sound. This does not have the dogish, so it's going to be the soft v sound. Of, and that means father. Now remember I said that the letters have meanings. That's strong authority. That's the house. The father is the strong authority of the house. And that's the way it ought to be, at least. Another word using the Aleph, but adding a letter that we're really not going to, we use it a lot, but it's not going to be one we focus on today. Starts with an Aleph. And then this is a lamed. And those 2 little dots, that vowel marking is called a sere. and it makes an A sound. A lamed makes an L sound. So remember the Alef just takes the sound of the vowel, ale, ale, and that's God. You usually will see it as Elohim or just El. We're used to just pronouncing it El, but that means God. And the Lamed, just mentioning here, is the shepherd's crook. So the strong authority and shepherd's crook, the strong shepherd, the authority that's holding the rod. Another word using the bet this time, a common word, and that's the lamed again. Still makes the sound. Still have the seri. It's still going to say A, and that does not have the dogish. So what sound is it going to make? The va. Lave, lave, and that means heart. So that's rulership, guiding, and that's the inside. Remember? So your heart is what what guides, what rules what's inside, or the inside ruler. Your heart is what rules the inside of you. And then one more word. And these are not letters that we've studied yet. I always want to have to double check the markings every time. This is a word that I'm sure, whatever your faith is, if you're anywhere in the Judeo-Christian world, you use it all the time. Do you remember that this sound made the ah? So it starts with ah. That's going to be the A sound. That's a mem. It says and that's a noon, and it says amen. Amen. And most of you are used to saying amen, but it's actually pronounced amen. And most of us say it at the end of prayer. You're not necessarily going to find it that way when you look through the scriptures, that you have to say amen at the end or amen at the end of a prayer. I will mention here, this is the kind of thing we'll get into later. I'm touching on a lot of things. For those that are in the congregation, what I wanted you to remember is what the Alef is, what the Bet is, the numbers, and how to pronounce them. And I think it'd be great if you just sat and practiced writing them, moving your brain the other direction. Instead of just looking at it and recognizing it, write it yourself. But all Hebrew words come from a three-letter root, and the root is always a verb. Hebrew is a physical, concrete, active language. In English, we tend to think of nouns, and that's what our children learn first. They identify things, they point out nouns, and they learn nouns. In Hebrew, the thought process is the action. An example that was given to me recently, and I tested this with different people, and I found it to really be true. You ask someone in the West, describe a pencil to me. And they'll say, well, it's long, it's yellow, it's got lead on the inside, has an eraser on the end. You ask somebody who thinks like a Hebrew, somebody from the East, describe a pencil to me. It's what you write with. They think in terms of what you do. They think in terms of actions. We think in terms of objects. It's a whole different way of thinking. So the three-letter root that comes from is, and it won't have vowel markings. It's the same letters. Aman, and you usually pronounce it Aman, or you could say Alef Mem Nun. And that means to be permanent, to be correct, to, in a minor sense, to turn to the right, to be firm, to be absolute, not absolute, let's see, firm, steadfast, faithful, to all those things. So when you say Amen, you're not just closing a prayer. You're not just saying, yep, that sounds good. It's, I stand on that. That is something that I believe should be steadfast, should be true, should be firm. I am behind that with my whole heart. I would encourage you not to say Amen to things you don't quite agree with. It's not going to offend the other person as much as it might offend your spirit and God if you're not being honest. Let's see. Oh, it also means to be morally correct. So sometimes you'll hear somebody pray for something and you think, I don't even think that's right. I don't think we should ask that. If you don't think you should ask that, please don't say Amen at the end. At least that's my view. And I will leave this up to you. I'm very much a believer in letting you figure out your own way. I'll give you what little I know, and then you can take it from there. Anyway, I think that's about all we covered that first day. I'll be putting up more lessons, and I hope this blesses you. Shalom.